If God is everywhere, why can I not feel His presence in my daily life? A seeker asked Yogananda. The great master smiled, his eyes reflecting that peculiar luminosity that seemed to come from some inner sun. He gestured for the questioner to sit beside him in the garden where they had been walking. The afternoon light filtered through the leaves of an ancient oak, creating patterns of shadow and illumination on the ground between them. For a long moment, Yogananda said nothing, simply allowing the question to settle in the space between them like dust motes finding their rest. Before we begin, if you enjoy this video, give me a like, comment below about your thought and hit subscribe button so you don't miss any video inspired by Yogananda's teaching. Thank you very much. You ask why you cannot feel what is closer to you than your own breath, he finally said, his voice carrying that melodious quality that made even the simplest words seem like poetry. But tell me, my friend, can a fish feel the ocean while it swims? Does the bird, soaring through the sky, stop to marvel at the air that holds it aloft? You are asking to feel what you have never stopped feeling, but your attention has been trained elsewhere, like a man searching frantically for the glasses that rest upon his own nose. The seeker shifted uncomfortably, perhaps expecting a more direct answer, something he could grasp and take away like a stone from the garden path. But Yogananda continued, his gaze now directed toward the play of light through the leaves above them. The divine is not absent from your life. The divine is your life. Every breath you draw is drawn by Him. Every thought that moves through your mind moves in His consciousness. Every sensation, every emotion, every moment of joy or sorrow, all of it occurs within the infinite ocean of His being. But you have identified yourself with the small wave and forgotten you are the entire sea. This is the great forgetting, the cosmic amnesia that makes spiritual seeking necessary. He paused, reaching down to touch the earth beside him, letting the soil run through his fingers. Consider this ground beneath us. It supports everything, the trees, the flowers, the buildings, our very bodies as we sit here. Yet do we think about it? Do we feel grateful for it with every step? No, we take it completely for granted. We notice it only when it shakes in an earthquake or when we stumble. The ground is so fundamental to our existence that it becomes invisible to our awareness. God is like this, only infinitely more so. He is the ground of all being, the foundation of existence itself. How can you feel Him as separate from yourself when there is no moment in which you are separate from Him? The seeker's brow furrowed in concentration, trying to grasp the teaching. But Master, he said, surely there must be a way to become aware of this presence. Otherwise, why do we meditate? Why do we pray? Why do the scriptures speak of finding God, of knowing God, of experiencing God? Yogananda's smile deepened, and he nodded with appreciation. Ah, now you are asking the right question. Yes, there is a way, but it is not a way of finding something new. It is a way of removing the obstacles that prevent you from recognizing what has always been present. Imagine a room filled with sunlight, but you are wearing a blindfold. The sunlight does not need to be created or brought into the room. It is already there, flooding every corner. What is needed is simply the removal of the blindfold. He leaned forward slightly, his intensity growing. The blindfold, my dear friend, is made of many layers. The first layer is identification with the body. You think, I am this body, and immediately you have confined the infinite to a small cage of flesh and bone. You feel the body's hungers, its pains, its pleasures, and you think these sensations are the totality of your existence. But the body is merely a costume you are wearing, a vehicle you are driving. When you watch a movie, do you forget you are sitting in a theater? Do you believe you have become the characters on the screen? Yet this is precisely what you do with the body. You have become so absorbed in the role that you have forgotten the actor. A breeze moved through the garden, carrying with it the scent of jasmine. Yogananda breathed it in deeply, as if demonstrating the very presence he was describing. The second layer of the blindfold is identification with the mind and its endless procession of thoughts. From morning until night, thoughts parade through your consciousness, worries about the future, regrets about the past, judgments about the present, plans, fantasies, memories, opinions. This constant mental noise is like static on a radio, preventing you from hearing the subtle music that plays beneath it. You think you are your thoughts, but you are not. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear, like clouds passing through the sky. The seeker nodded slowly, beginning to understand. So the practice of meditation is to remove these layers? Precisely, Yogananda replied. But understand, it is not a violent removal, like tearing off a bandage. It is a gentle, patient process of disidentification. In meditation, you learn to watch the body without being the body. You observe its sensations as a scientist observes phenomena in a laboratory, with interest but without attachment. You learn to watch the mind without being the mind. You see thoughts arise and pass away, and you recognize that you are the unchanging witness of this changing parade. He picked up a fallen leaf from the ground, holding it up to catch the light. This leaf was once green and full of life. Now it is brown and dry. Soon it will crumble into dust and return to the earth. Everything in the manifest world follows this pattern: birth, growth, decay, death, and transformation. Your body follows this pattern. Your thoughts and emotions follow this pattern. But the consciousness that witnesses all of this, does it age? Does it decay? Can you find a moment when you are not aware? Even in deep sleep, there is awareness, though it is awareness of nothing in particular. This witnessing consciousness is your true nature, and it is nothing other than God's own awareness, looking out through your eyes, listening through your ears, experiencing life through your particular nervous system. The afternoon was growing late, and the quality of light had changed, becoming softer, more golden. Yogananda seemed to glow in this light, or perhaps it was simply the radiance of his presence becoming more apparent. You ask why you cannot feel God's presence in your daily life, but I tell you that every experience you have ever had has been an experience of God. When you taste something delicious, it is God experiencing taste through you. When you feel love for another person, it is God loving himself through the form of separation. When you suffer, it is God exploring the mystery of limitation and pain. Nothing is outside of him because there is nothing outside of him. The universe is not a creation separate from the creator, like a painting separate from the painter. The universe is the creator in disguise, playing all the roles in his own cosmic drama. The seeker sat in silence for a moment, absorbing these words. Then he asked, but if this is true, why does it not feel true? Why do I feel so separate, so alone, so cut off from this divine presence you describe? Yogananda's expression became infinitely compassionate. Because, my dear friend, this is the nature of the game God is playing. He has hidden himself so completely that he can experience the joy of finding himself again. Imagine you are playing hide-and-seek with yourself. You must genuinely forget where you are hiding, or there is no game, no surprise, no delight in the discovery. The sense of separation you feel is not a mistake or a punishment. It is the necessary condition for the greatest adventure possible. The journey from unconscious unity to conscious unity, from being God without knowing it to being God with full awareness. He stood up slowly, brushing the soil from his hands, and began to walk along the garden path. The seeker rose and followed. The spiritual path, Yogananda continued, is the path of remembering. It is not about becoming something you are not. It is about recognizing what you have always been. Every spiritual practice, meditation, prayer, devotion, service, study, is designed to thin the veil of forgetfulness, to create cracks in the shell of the ego through which the light of true understanding can shine. They walked in silence for a few moments, their footsteps soft on the earth. Then Yogananda stopped and turned to face his companion directly. But here is the secret that many seekers miss: you cannot feel God's presence as long as you are looking for it as something separate from yourself. The very act of seeking creates the illusion of separation. It is like the eye trying to see itself or the tongue trying to taste itself. You are looking for the subject as if it were an object, and this is impossible. He placed his hand over his heart. The feeling you seek is not a feeling like other feelings. It is not an emotion that comes and goes. It is the background of all feelings, the space in which all emotions arise. It is the peace that underlies both happiness and sorrow. It is the stillness that contains all movement. It is the silence from which all sounds emerge and to which they return. When you stop looking for it, out there, or even, in here, as something separate from your ordinary awareness, you may suddenly recognize that it has been present all along, as obvious and unavoidable as existence itself. The seeker's eyes had begun to shine with something, perhaps understanding, perhaps hope, perhaps the first glimmer of recognition. So what should I do, Master? How should I practice? Yogananda laughed, a sound of pure delight. Do everything and do nothing. Practice your meditation faithfully, yes. Sit in silence and watch the breath. Chant the names of God with devotion. Study the scriptures and the teachings of the great masters. But also, and this is equally important, live your ordinary life with full attention. Wash the dishes as if washing the dishes were the most sacred act in the universe. Walk down the street as if each step were a prayer. Listen to others as if God Himself were speaking through their mouths. Look at the faces of strangers and see the divine peering out through their eyes, playing at being a shopkeeper, a child, a beggar, a king. He gestured broadly at the world around them, the garden, the buildings beyond, the sky above. This world is not an obstacle to spiritual realization. It is the very field in which realization occurs. God has not hidden Himself in some distant heaven, accessible only through years of austere practice. He has hidden Himself in plain sight, in the most obvious place, right here, right now, as the very fabric of your immediate experience. The taste of your morning tea, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the sound of birds singing, the feeling of your own heartbeat, these are not distractions from the spiritual path. They are the path itself when met with full awareness and recognition. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Yogananda stood still, his face turned toward the light, and for a moment he seemed to become transparent, as if the light were shining through him rather than on him. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, more intimate. The presence you seek is seeking you with far greater intensity than you are seeking it. It is the very power that drives your seeking. It is the love that makes you dissatisfied with superficial pleasures and hungry for something deeper. It is the intelligence that formulated your question. It is the awareness that is listening to my answer right now. You cannot feel it because you are it, and it cannot be objectified. But you can rest as it. You can relax into the recognition that you have never been separate from it, not for a single instant. He turned back to the seeker, and his eyes held a depth that seemed to contain galaxies. So I will tell you this, stop trying so hard to feel God's presence. Instead, notice that you are already feeling it, that you have never felt anything else. Every sensation, every perception, every thought, every emotion, all of it is the divine experiencing itself through the unique lens of your individuality. The question is not how to feel God's presence. The question is, can you recognize that the one who is asking the question, the one who is listening to the answer, the one who is aware of this very moment, that one is not separate from the presence you seek? The seeker stood very still, and something in his face had changed. Perhaps it was the fading light, or perhaps it was something else, a softening, an opening, a moment of grace. Yogananda smiled and placed his hand gently on the seeker's shoulder. Go now and live your life. Meditate, pray, practice. Yes, do all of these things. But do them not to find something you have lost, but to remember what you have never ceased to be. And in the midst of your daily activities, pause sometimes and ask yourself, who is aware of this moment? Who is experiencing this life? When you look deeply enough, you will find that the answer to these questions is not a who at all, but a presence, a consciousness, an infinite awareness that has no boundaries and no center. And that presence, my friend, is what you have been calling God, and what God has been calling you.